My stepsister claimed I was obsessed with her and destroyed my reputation. I ruined her entire future in return. My stepsister Jade moved in when I was 17, and she was 16 after my dad married her mom. From day one, she acted like I was beneath her, calling me boring and saying she couldn't believe she had to share a house with someone so basic. I kept my distance, focused on school, and counted days until college. But 2 months in, Jade started telling people at school that I had feelings for her. Not sibling feelings, but romantic ones. She'd whisper to her friends in the hallway that I stared at her constantly, that I left love notes under her door, that she caught me going through her things. None of it was true, but people believed her because why would she make that up about her own stepbrother? Teachers started watching me suspiciously. Kids moved away from me in class. My girlfriend Holly broke up with me because Jade told her I'd confessed my feelings during a family dinner. I tried explaining it was all lies, but Jade had details, fake stories she'd crafted perfectly. She said I'd tried to kiss her when our parents went out. She said I'd bought her jewelry for her birthday and got angry when she refused it. She said I'd written her a letter confessing everything which she'd burned to protect me. Each lie had just enough detail to sound real. My dad pulled me aside asking if I needed therapy. Jade's mom started locking Jade's bedroom door and installed a camera in the hallway, supposedly for safety. My own father looked at me differently, like I was some creep he didn't recognize. When I confronted Jade privately, she smiled and said nobody would ever believe me over her. She said I should just transfer schools if I couldn't handle it. The situation got worse when Jade started dating Tyler, this popular guy from the football team. She immediately told him about my supposed obsession, painting herself as this victim bravely living with a stepbrother who wanted her. Tyler and his friends started threatening me, saying they'd protect Jade from her creepy stepbrother. They'd shoulder check me in hallways, knock my books down, leave threatening notes in my locker. Teachers saw it as protective behavior and did nothing. Jade would cry to anyone who'd listen about how uncomfortable she was at home, how she couldn't even shower without worrying I was listening. She joined a support group for teens in difficult family situations and became their poster child for surviving inappropriate family dynamics. She gave speeches at school assemblies about recognizing unhealthy behaviors. She never said my name, but everyone knew who she meant. My social life was completely destroyed. Nobody wanted to be associated with the guy who supposedly liked his stepsister. I ate lunch alone, worked on group projects alone, went to prom alone because even Holly wouldn't speak to me. College acceptances came and I chose a school across the country just to escape. But even that wasn't enough for Jade. She posted on the college's incoming freshman page warning girls about me, saying I had boundary issues and they should be careful. I had to defer enrollment for a year because the school said they needed to investigate the claims. Jade thought she'd won completely. Then Tyler's little brother Kevin asked to use Tyler's laptop for a school project. Tyler was at practice and said yes without thinking. Kevin needed to research something for history class, but accidentally clicked on Tyler's browser history instead. What Kevin found made him immediately call his older sister Melissa, who worked in IT. Tyler's search history was full of disturbing content about step-siblings, hundreds of searches specifically about stepbrothers and stepsisters. The searches went back months, long before he'd started dating Jade. Melissa was disgusted and did more digging. She found Tyler had multiple accounts on forums dedicated to this topic. He'd been writing detailed fiction about step-siblings for over 2 years. In one post, he'd mentioned wanting to date someone with a stepbrother to live out his fantasies. In another, he'd asked for advice on how to get his girlfriend to roleplay as having feelings for her stepbrother. The timestamps showed these posts were made right after he'd started dating Jade. Melissa took screenshots of everything and sent them to Jade, thinking she was protecting her from a creep. But Jade didn't react how Melissa expected. Instead of being disgusted, Jade panicked and begged Melissa not to tell anyone. That's when Melissa realized the truth. Jade had been feeding Tyler's obsession by making up stories about me. She'd been using his sick interest to make herself seem desirable to him. Melissa was furious and forwarded everything to the school counselor, the principal, our parents, and most importantly, to everyone who'd believed Jade's lies about me. The screenshots spread through the school instantly. I sit in my room staring at my phone as hundreds of notifications flood in. The screen lights up every few seconds with new messages, group chat updates, social media tags. Screenshots of Tyler's search history are spreading faster than I can keep track of. Every group chat at the school has them now. Every social media platform. The evidence is everywhere, permanent and undeniable. Tyler's browser history showing months of searches about step-siblings, all dated before he started dating Jade. Forum posts where he talked about wanting to date someone with a stepbrother. Messages asking for advice on getting his girlfriend to roleplay scenarios. The timestamps prove everything. This wasn't about me having feelings for Jade. This was about Tyler's sick obsession, and Jade feeding it with lies about me. My hands shake as I scroll through messages from people who spent 2 years treating me like a creep. Classmates who moved away from me in hallways are now sending apologies. Teachers who watched me with suspicion are being called out in the comments. Someone made a whole thread documenting every lie Jade told with dates and witnesses. The support group she spoke to posted a statement saying they were deceived. Kids who believed her victim act are now calling her manipulative. I should feel relieved, but I mostly feel sick. 2 years of my life destroyed because Jade wanted to seem desirable to her boyfriend's twisted fantasy. 2 years of eating lunch alone, working on projects by myself, having my own father look at me like I was dangerous. All of it was planned. All of it was deliberate. The notifications keep coming and I can't stop reading them, even though each one makes my stomach hurt worse. Around midnight, my dad knocks on my door. I hear it, but don't move at first. His voice comes through quiet and shaky in a way I've never heard before. He asks if we can talk. I tell him to come in, and he opens the door slowly, like he's scared of what he'll find. His face looks 10 years older than it did this morning. He's seen the screenshots, too. Everyone has seen them by now. He sits on the edge of my bed and tries to start talking, but his voice breaks. He finally understands what Jade did to me. I can see it in his eyes, the horrible realization that he believed her lies over my truth, that he pulled me aside asking if I needed therapy, that he let Monica install a camera in the hallway like I was some kind of predator in my own home. He starts apologizing, and I just sit there feeling too angry and exhausted to respond. Part of me wants to yell at him for not believing me sooner. Part of me wants to accept his apology and move past this. But mostly I just feel empty. The vindication I thought I'd want doesn't make anything better. It doesn't give me back 2 years. It doesn't undo the damage to our relationship. He keeps saying he's sorry, and I finally tell him I need time to process everything. He nods and leaves my room looking broken. I go back to staring at my phone because at least the notifications are something concrete to focus on. I barely sleep that night. Every time I close my eyes, I see Jade's smug smile when she told me nobody would believe me over her. I see Tyler's friends shoulder-checking me in hallways. I see my dad's disappointed face when Monica convinced him I was obsessed with Jade. So I stay awake, alternating between reading messages and feeling sick about everything. People who haven't spoken to me in 2 years are suddenly sending long apologies. They're explaining how convincing Jade was, how detailed her stories were, how they feel terrible now. But where were these people when I needed someone to believe me? Where were they when I ate lunch alone every day? Former friends are asking if I'm okay, if I want to hang out, if they can make it up to me somehow. I don't know how to respond to any of it. Around 3 in the morning, Holly sends a text that's paragraphs long. She says she should have trusted me, that she knew me better than to believe Jade's lies, that breaking up with me was the biggest mistake she ever made. She says she's sorry for the past 2 years, and she understands if I never want to speak to her again. I read it 3 times but can't bring myself to respond. What am I supposed to say? That it's okay she believed I confessed feelings for my stepsister during a family dinner. That I forgive her for refusing to even listen to my side. I put my phone face down on my nightstand and stare at the ceiling until morning light starts coming through my window. The next morning at the school, everyone stares at me differently. Not with suspicion anymore, but with this uncomfortable mix of pity and guilt that somehow feels worse. Kids in the parking lot watch me walk past and then immediately start whispering to their friends. In first period, the teacher can't make eye contact with me. She's one of the ones who watched me like a predator for 2 years, moving me away from other students during group work, keeping me after class to lecture me about appropriate boundaries. Now she won't even look at me while taking attendance. Between classes, people step aside to let me through the hallway like I'm someone important, instead of someone they spent months treating like garbage. A girl from my English class stops me to apologize for believing Jade. She's crying while she talks about how convincing the stories were, how she feels terrible, how she should have questioned things more. I tell her it's fine, even though it's not fine at all. At lunch, I sit at my usual empty table, and 3 different groups of people ask if they can join me. People who used to move to different tables when I sat down now want to eat lunch together. I say no to all of them, because I can't just pretend the past 2 years didn't happen. Teachers who reported me to the principal for making Jade uncomfortable now smile at me in the hallways like we're friends. I realize vindication doesn't erase anything. It doesn't undo being treated like a monster. It doesn't fix the damage or give me back the time I lost. The stares of pity feel almost as bad as the stares of suspicion did. Jade doesn't show up to the school. By lunch, the rumors are flying that her mom kept her home because she's having a breakdown. Someone heard she's been crying nonstop since the screenshots spread. Another person says she tried to delete all her social media, but people already saved everything. Kids are sharing old posts where she talked about being a victim, matching them up with dates that prove she was lying the whole time. Tyler's been suspended pending investigation into his behavior. The principal called his parents yesterday, and now he's banned from campus until they decide what to do with him. His former football buddies are suddenly acting like they barely knew him. The same guys who threatened me and knocked my books down are now telling anyone who'll listen that they always thought Tyler was weird. They're desperate to distance themselves from the scandal, pretending they weren't his best friends last week. Someone spray painted something on Tyler's locker, and the janitor had to cover it up. Kids who defended Jade's victim story are now posting apologies and deleting their old comments. The whole social order at the school is shifting in real time, and I'm just watching it happen from the outside. Part of me feels satisfied seeing Jade's reputation collapse. But another part feels weird about it because I know what it's like to have everyone turn on you at once, even if she deserves it way more than I ever did. Principal Cantu calls me into his office during 5th period. I walk down the empty hallway to the administrative building feeling anxious, even though I didn't do anything wrong. His secretary waves me in, and he's sitting behind his desk looking uncomfortable. He offers me a seat and starts with an apology that feels hollow and scripted. He says the school is launching a formal investigation into both Jade's false accusations and Tyler's behavior. He explains they're reviewing their policies on how they handle accusations between students. He suggests I might want to speak with the school counselor, like talking to someone can undo 2 years of social destruction and betrayal. I sit there listening to him talk about protocols and investigations and support services. He never once mentions how teachers treated me like a threat, how he himself pulled me into his office last year to lecture me about respecting boundaries after Jade gave a speech at assembly, how the school enabled her lies by believing them without ever asking for my side. He just keeps talking about moving forward and healing and making sure this doesn't happen again. When he finally stops talking, I ask him if that's all. He looks surprised, like he expected me to thank him or something. I tell him I need to get back to class and leave his office feeling even more exhausted than before. I meet with Counselor Layla Snyder during my free period because the principal scheduled it without asking me first. Her office is small with motivational posters on the walls about believing in yourself and staying strong. She seems genuinely concerned when I sit down, asking how I'm doing and if I'm okay processing everything. I can barely focus on her questions because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that people actually know the truth now. She talks about trauma and healing and the importance of working through difficult experiences. She mentions that 2 other students have come forward saying Tyler made them uncomfortable with weird comments about their siblings. One girl said he kept asking invasive questions about her stepbrother. Another kid said Tyler would bring up step-siblings in random conversations and get this strange look on his face. I wonder how long his obsession has been going on and how many people noticed but stayed quiet. Layla asks if I want to file a formal complaint against Jade for the false accusations. She explains the process and the possible outcomes. I tell her I need time to think about it because I honestly don't know what I want anymore. Revenge doesn't feel as satisfying as I thought it would. Vindication doesn't fix anything. She gives me her card and tells me her door is always open if I need to talk. I take the card and leave, feeling like talking won't solve anything, but maybe it's better than keeping everything inside. That afternoon, Piper Jennings approaches me in the parking lot. I recognize her as Tyler's older sister from seeing her pick him up sometimes. She looks nervous and guilty as she walks over. She apologizes for not realizing sooner what was happening. She explains she only dug deeper into Tyler's online activity because the initial searches were so disturbing. When she found the forum posts and the timestamps, she felt sick. She says she realized Jade had been manufacturing stories to match Tyler's fantasies, and she couldn't stay quiet about it. She forwarded everything to the school and our parents because people needed to know the truth. I thank her because she's literally the only reason anyone believes me now. Without her finding that evidence, I'd still be the creepy stepbrother everyone avoided. She asks if I'm okay, and I give her some generic answer about taking things one day at a time. She tells me if I ever need someone to talk to about what happened, she's around. I appreciate the offer even though I barely know her. We talk for a few more minutes about Tyler's suspension and how her parents are handling everything. She says they're horrified by what they found and considering therapy for him. I don't tell her that therapy won't fix someone who spent years cultivating an obsession and using his girlfriend to act it out. We say goodbye, and I drive home feeling slightly less alone than I did this morning. By the end of the week, Jade's reputation at the school has completely collapsed. The same people who believed her victim act now call her manipulative and cruel. Someone made a list of every lie she told with evidence proving each one was false. Her former friends won't sit with her at lunch when she finally comes back to the school. Kids whisper and point when she walks down the hallway. Someone wrote something mean on her locker, and she had to get a teacher to help her clean it off. I watch it happen from a distance and feel this weird mix of satisfaction and discomfort. Part of me thinks she deserves every bit of social destruction she's getting. She did this to me on purpose, planned it out, enjoyed watching me suffer. But another part of me knows what it's like to be socially destroyed, and it's horrible even when you deserve it. I see her eating lunch alone at a corner table looking small and defeated. I see former friends turn away when she tries to talk to them. I see teachers watching her with suspicion now instead of sympathy. It's exactly what she did to me, but reversed. The satisfaction I thought I'd feel isn't as strong as the discomfort of watching someone go through what I went through, even if she earned it. Monica shows up at my bedroom door that night crying. I'm doing homework when I hear her knock softly. She asks if she can come in and I tell her okay, even though I don't really want to talk to her. She sits in my desk chair and starts apologizing for not believing me, for the camera she installed in the hallway like I was some kind of threat, for taking Jade's side over mine without ever questioning her stories, for making me feel unsafe in my own home. She's crying hard, and her words come out broken and shaky. She says she never imagined her daughter could be so cruel, so calculating. She thought she was protecting Jade from an uncomfortable situation. She believed every lie because why would a mother doubt her own child? I let her talk but don't say much back. I honestly don't know if I can forgive her for thinking her daughter's lies were more credible than my truth. For installing that camera. For looking at me like I was dangerous. She keeps apologizing and asking what she can do to make things right. I tell her I don't know because I really don't. Some things can't be fixed with apologies. Some damage is permanent. She eventually leaves my room still crying, and I go back to my homework feeling tired of everyone's guilt and apologies. The next morning, I find an email from the college admissions office sitting in my inbox with the subject line, "Application Status Update," and my hands start shaking before I even open it. I stare at my phone for 10 minutes, convinced they're about to officially reject me, that even with the truth coming out, they've decided I'm too much trouble. The email asks me to call their office during business hours to discuss my application status, which tells me nothing and makes my stomach hurt worse. I spend the entire day at the school unable to focus on anything, checking my phone between classes and trying to figure out what they want to say that requires a phone call instead of just an email. By the time I get home that afternoon, I've convinced myself it's bad news, that they're going to explain why they can't accept someone with this kind of drama attached to their name, even if I was the victim. I dial the number at exactly 4 o'clock, and a woman answers identifying herself as an admissions counselor named Mrs. Martin. She asks me to verify my student ID number and date of birth, then goes quiet for a second before telling me she wants to apologize on behalf of the college for deferring my enrollment without conducting a proper investigation. She explains they received multiple emails over the past week from students at my school, from Principal Cantu, and even from Piper explaining what actually happened and providing evidence of Jade's lies. The college reviewed everything, including the screenshots of Tyler's online activity and Jade's panic when confronted, and they've determined that the accusations against me were completely false. Mrs. Martin says they're reinstating my acceptance immediately and offering me priority registration for classes as an apology for the delay and stress they caused. I don't know what to say at first because I'd prepared myself for rejection, not for them to actually admit they were wrong and try to make it right. She asks if I still plan to attend in the fall, and I tell her yes, my voice coming out weird and tight because I'm trying not to cry on the phone with a stranger. We talk for a few more minutes about next steps, and she gives me her direct email in case I have any questions or concerns, then wishes me luck with the rest of my senior year. When I hang up, I just sit there on my bed staring at nothing, feeling this strange mix of relief and anger because they should have investigated properly in the first place instead of believing Jade's post without question. 3 days after the screenshots first spread, Jade finally comes back to the school, and I see her getting out of Monica's car in the parking lot looking smaller than usual. She walks toward the building with her head down and her backpack clutched tight against her chest like armor. I'm standing near my locker with a couple of people from my history class when she enters through the main doors, and I watch everyone's reaction in real time. Kids literally step aside to let her pass, creating this empty space around her like she's contaminated. Someone whispers loud enough for her to hear, and she flinches but keeps walking. Her locker is in the hallway near the science wing, and when she gets there, she stops dead, staring at the word "liar" spray painted across the metal in thick red letters. I'm far enough away that I can't see her face clearly, but I watch her shoulders collapse inward and her hand come up to cover her mouth. A teacher notices and hurries over asking who did this, already pulling out her radio to call maintenance. Jade doesn't answer, just stands there looking at the vandalism while students walk past staring and whispering. For just a second, I feel something that might be sympathy, because I know exactly what it's like to have everyone turn on you, to walk through these hallways knowing people are talking about you and believing the worst. But then I remember her smile when she told me nobody would ever believe me over her. Remember her giving speeches at assemblies about my supposed behavior. Remember her posting warnings about me on the college page, and the sympathy disappears. She did this to me on purpose, planned it out, enjoyed watching me suffer for 2 years. What's happening to her now is just the truth finally catching up, and she earned every bit of it. The teacher tries to comfort her, but Jade pulls away and walks quickly toward the bathroom, and I turn back to my locker feeling nothing but tired. That night, I'm in my room doing homework when I hear my dad's voice rising downstairs, loud enough that the words carry through the floor. Monica's voice answers back just as loud, and I realize they're fighting about Jade. I open my door and move to the top of the stairs where I can hear better without being seen. Monica is saying that Jade was manipulated by Tyler, that he took advantage of her age and used his obsession to control her into making up stories about me. Dad's voice cuts her off sharp and angry, asking how Tyler manipulated Jade into lying about me months before they even started dating. He brings up the journal entries that prove Jade planned this from the beginning. that she wrote about wanting to make me miserable because she resented sharing her mom's attention. Monica tries to argue that the journal doesn't prove anything, that teenage girls write dramatic things they don't mean, but Dad's not having it. His voice gets louder than I've ever heard it, saying Monica enabled Jade's lies for 2 years, that she installed a camera in the hallway, and locked Jade's door like I was some kind of predator, that she destroyed his relationship with his own son by choosing to believe her daughter over the truth. He says he can't forgive her for that. Can't forgive how she made me feel unsafe in my own home. Monica starts crying and saying she was just trying to protect her daughter, that any mother would have done the same thing. Dad tells her that a good mother would have questioned her daughter's stories, would have looked for actual evidence instead of just believing detailed lies. He says their marriage is over, that he can't stay with someone who treated his son like a threat and refuses to take real responsibility for it. Monica's crying harder now, begging him not to do this, saying they can work through it with counseling. But Dad sounds done, completely finished, and he tells her she needs to start looking for a new place to live because he wants her and Jade out of the house. I back away from the stairs and return to my room, closing the door quietly. Part of me feels bad that their marriage is ending, but mostly I just feel relieved that Jade will be gone soon and our house can go back to being a place where I'm not constantly on edge. The next day, Holly approaches me in the cafeteria during lunch, walking over to where I'm sitting alone at a corner table. She asks if we can talk privately, and I agree even though I'm not sure what I want from her anymore. We go outside to the courtyard where it's quieter, and she immediately starts crying, apologizing for believing Jade and breaking up with me. She says the stories were so detailed and convincing that Jade seemed genuinely scared and uncomfortable, and she didn't think someone would make up something that serious about their own stepbrother. Holly explains that she feels horrible about abandoning me when I needed support, that she should have trusted me enough to at least question Jade's version of events. She keeps saying she's sorry over and over, her face red and tears running down her cheeks. I stand there listening and feeling this complicated mix of emotions because part of me wants to forgive her and go back to how things were, but another part can't stop thinking that she should have known me well enough to doubt the accusations. We dated for almost a year before Jade moved in, and in that time she should have learned that I wasn't the kind of person who would do what Jade claimed. The fact that she believed detailed lies over knowing my actual character hurts worse than if she'd just been a stranger who didn't know me at all. I tell her I appreciate the apology, but I need time to figure out how I feel about everything. She nods and wipes her face, asking if maybe we can hang out sometime as friends, and I say maybe, though I'm not sure if I mean it. We walk back inside and go separate directions, and I spend the rest of lunch feeling lonely despite being surrounded by people. 2 days later, I get called to Principal Cantu's office during third period. When I arrive, there's a woman I don't recognize sitting in one of the chairs, and Cantu introduces her as a district administrator named Dr. Moore, who's investigating what happened with Jade and Tyler. She explains that both of them have been interviewed separately, and now she needs my formal statement about everything Jade said about me and how it affected my life. I sit down and start talking, going through the whole timeline from when Jade first started spreading rumors to when I had to defer college enrollment. Dr. Moore takes notes on a laptop while I speak, occasionally asking questions about specific incidents or asking me to clarify details. I have to describe every lie Jade told, every humiliating moment when teachers watched me suspiciously or students moved away from me in class. I talk about Holly breaking up with me, about eating lunch alone for 2 years, about Tyler and his friends threatening me in the hallways. I explain about the support group speeches and the school assemblies where Jade painted herself as a victim of inappropriate family dynamics while everyone knew she meant me. The hardest part is describing how my own father looked at me differently, how Monica installed that camera like I was dangerous, how I felt unsafe in my own home. My voice shakes when I talk about having to defer college enrollment because Jade posted warnings about me, about losing a year of my life because the school believed her lies without investigation. Dr. Moore listens to everything, and her face gets more serious as I talk, and when I finish, she thanks me for being willing to share such difficult experiences. She says my statement will be part of the official record and used in determining appropriate consequences for both Jade and Tyler. I leave the office feeling exhausted and raw from reliving everything, and I skip fourth period to sit in my car in the parking lot, trying to pull myself back together. The next week, my dad gets a call from a lawyer representing Tyler's family. I'm in the kitchen getting a snack when Dad answers, and I can tell from his face that whoever's calling is saying something that makes him angry. He listens for a minute, then cuts the person off, his voice cold and controlled. The lawyer is apparently calling what Tyler did a teenage mistake and inappropriate internet browsing, completely ignoring the predatory pattern of behavior and the years of obsessive content. Dad tells the lawyer that calling it internet browsing is minimizing what Tyler actually did, which was cultivate a sick obsession with step-siblings, and then pursue a relationship with Jade specifically because she had a stepbrother. The lawyer suggests that everyone should move past this quietly for the sake of the kids involved, that making a big deal out of it will only hurt Tyler's future. Dad's face goes red, and he says he doesn't care about Tyler's future, that Tyler destroyed 2 years of his son's life and doesn't get to just move on without consequences. He points out that nobody cared about my future when Jade was spreading lies and Tyler was threatening me in hallways, that nobody suggested moving past it quietly when I had to defer college enrollment. The lawyer tries to say something else, but Dad talks over him, saying that if Tyler's family contacts us again, he'll get his own lawyer and pursue every possible consequence for what their son did. He hangs up without saying goodbye and stands there gripping the counter, breathing hard. I don't say anything, just watch him process his anger, and after a minute he looks at me and says, he's sorry he didn't protect me better from the beginning. I tell him I know, and we stand there in the kitchen not saying anything else because there's nothing else to say that would make any of this better. 3 weeks after the screenshots spread through school, people start reaching out more regularly. Former friends text asking if I want to hang out. Kids I used to talk to in class stop me in hallways to say hi. People I haven't spoken to in 2 years suddenly act like we're cool again. Part of me wants to accept every invitation because I've been isolated for so long that any social connection feels good. But another part resents that they only believe me now because there's proof, like my word was never enough on its own. They needed screenshots and timestamps and documented evidence before they'd consider that maybe Jade was lying and I was telling the truth. I think about all the times I tried to explain that her stories weren't real, all the times I sat alone at lunch while these same people walked past without acknowledging me. Now they want to be friends again because it's safe, because believing me won't make them social outcasts anymore. I accept some invitations and ignore others, trying to figure out who actually feels bad about what happened versus who just wants to be on the right side now that the truth is out. It's exhausting trying to sort through everyone's motivations, trying to decide who deserves a second chance and who just wants to feel better about themselves. I agree to meet up with 3 guys I used to be friends with before everything happened, and we go to this pizza place near school that we used to hit up all the time. The whole thing is awkward from the start, everyone tiptoeing around what happened and trying to act normal while obviously thinking about it constantly. Daniel keeps apologizing and saying he should have known Jade was lying, that the stories never really made sense, but he didn't want to get involved. Jake talks about how convincing Jade was and how detailed her lies were, like that somehow excuses believing her over me. Devin just looks uncomfortable and doesn't say much, picking at his pizza and avoiding eye contact. I sit there listening to them try to justify why they abandoned me, and I keep thinking, yeah, you really should have known. You should have questioned why Jade's stories kept getting more extreme. Should have wondered why I never actually did anything inappropriate that anyone witnessed. Should have trusted that you knew me well enough to doubt the accusations. Their guilt doesn't give me back 2 years of eating lunch alone, doesn't undo the damage of having everyone treat me like a predator. We finish eating and make vague plans to hang out again, but I'm not sure if I actually want to. Being around them just reminds me of everything I lost and how easily they were willing to believe the worst about me. A few days later, Jade posts something on social media trying to rewrite what happened. The post says she was Tyler's victim too, that he manipulated her into making up stories about me to feed his obsession with step-siblings. She claims she didn't understand what he was doing, that she was young and naive and he took advantage of that. The post gets some sympathy at first from people who don't know the full timeline, comments saying she's brave for speaking out and that Tyler manipulated both of us. But then other people start responding with questions, pointing out that she gave speeches at the school assemblies about my supposed behavior months before she started dating Tyler. Someone links to an old post where Jade talked about her stepbrother being creepy, dated 4 months before her first date with Tyler. More people dig up old content, finding timestamps that prove she was spreading rumors about me long before Tyler was in the picture. The sympathetic comments disappear and get replaced with people calling her out for trying to manipulate the situation again, for attempting to use Tyler as an excuse when the evidence clearly shows she started everything on her own. I watch the whole thing happen in real time, sitting in my room scrolling through the comments as more people tear apart her story. Someone creates a whole thread documenting Jade's lies with specific dates and screenshots, showing exactly when she first started telling people I was obsessed with her versus when she first went out with Tyler. The thread includes screenshots of her old posts, testimonies from people who heard her rumors before Tyler existed in her life, and even references to her journal entries about planning to make me miserable. Every piece of evidence points to the same conclusion, which is that Jade targeted me deliberately from the beginning, that Tyler's obsession just gave her a convenient boyfriend who encouraged her behavior but didn't create it. Her victim narrative crumbles within hours as more evidence piles up and she ends up deleting the post entirely. But screenshots of it are already everywhere, and people share them with comments about how she's still trying to lie and manipulate even after being exposed. I close my phone feeling tired of the whole thing, tired of watching Jade try to escape consequences, tired of caring about any of it. Monica packs her bags 3 days after Jade's social media post falls apart, moving boxes and suitcases into her car while Dad and I watch from different rooms. She doesn't say much to either of us, just loads everything methodically like she's been planning this for a while. Dad stands in the kitchen doorway as she carries the last box out, and I hear him ask if she's coming back. She tells him she needs space to think, that her sister has a spare room, that she'll call him in a few days. The front door closes, and suddenly the house feels bigger and quieter, like someone turned down the volume on everything. Dad sits at the kitchen table staring at his coffee for 20 minutes without drinking it. I make myself a sandwich and eat it standing up because sitting down feels too permanent somehow. That night, Dad knocks on my door around 10 and asks if we can talk. He sits on the edge of my desk chair, looking older than I've ever seen him, his hands clasped between his knees. He apologizes again, saying he should have believed me from the start, that he failed me as a father by doubting his own son. I tell him I forgive him because that's what you're supposed to say, but the words feel hollow coming out. The truth is, I don't know if I forgive him yet. Don't know if I can forget how he looked at me like I was some kind of predator. He asks if we're okay, and I say, yeah, we're okay, even though I'm not sure that's true either. The next week drags by with just the two of us in the house, and it's weird how much better it feels without Monica's worried looks and Jade's absence looming over everything. Dad and I eat dinner together most nights, and he tries to act normal, asking about school and homework like we didn't just have our family explode. I go through the motions, answering his questions and pretending everything's fine, but there's this distance between us now that wasn't there before. Principal Cantu calls me into his office on a Thursday morning, and my stomach drops thinking something else has gone wrong. He sits behind his desk looking professional and uncomfortable, explaining that the district finished investigating Jade's accusations against me. They found a documented pattern of false accusations and significant harm caused to my reputation and mental health. The district is recommending expulsion for Jade based on their findings. She has a hearing scheduled in 2 weeks where she can present her side, and they're offering me the option to testify if I want to. Cantu slides a packet of papers across his desk, explaining the hearing process, what I'd need to do if I chose to participate, what kind of questions they might ask. I take the papers and fold them into my backpack without really looking at them. He asks if I have any questions, and I shake my head no, even though I have about 1,000,000 questions I can't put into words. Walking back to class, I feel this weird mix of satisfaction and exhaustion, like I finally got what I wanted, but it cost too much to feel good about it. The next few days, I can't stop thinking about whether to testify at Jade's hearing. Part of me wants to stand up there and tell everyone exactly what she did, make sure she can't twist the story one more time. But another part of me is so tired of being at the center of this nightmare, tired of reliving it every time someone asks what happened. I sit in my room at night staring at the ceiling trying to decide, weighing justice against the emotional cost of facing Jade again. Layla, the counselor, pulls me aside after lunch on Monday, asking how I'm doing with everything. I tell her about the hearing and my decision about testifying, and she listens without interrupting. She suggests that speaking my truth might help with closure, that having my voice heard officially could be healing. I tell her I'm not convinced closure is even possible after what Jade did, that some things are too broken to fix. She nods and says, closure doesn't mean forgetting or erasing what happened, just finding a way to move forward without it controlling every part of my life. I leave her office feeling slightly less confused, but no closer to a decision. News spreads through school that Tyler got expelled after his own hearing revealed everything. The district found extensive evidence of his online activity, and multiple students came forward saying he made them uncomfortable with comments about their siblings. His family immediately threatens to sue the district, claiming the punishment is too severe and that teenage boys make mistakes. The lawyer they hired gives some statement to the local news about how the school is overreacting to normal adolescent behavior, which makes me want to throw something at the TV. Normal adolescent behavior doesn't include obsessing over step-siblings and manipulating your girlfriend into creating fake scenarios. The fact that his family still won't admit what he did was wrong makes me sick. 2 days later, something else comes out that changes everything again. Someone finds old journal entries that Monica discovered while packing Jade's things from our house. The entries are from months before Jade even met Tyler, back when she first moved in with us. In detailed handwriting, she describes planning to make my life miserable because she resented having to share her mom's attention with me and Dad. She writes about different strategies for making me look bad, for getting people to believe I was obsessed with her, for isolating me socially. The entries are dated and specific, proving this was premeditated cruelty from the very beginning, not something Tyler influenced or encouraged. Monica apparently found the journal in a box of Jade's old school stuff and read through it, and what she found made her finally accept the truth. Monica shows up at our house on Wednesday evening with the journal in her hands and tears streaming down her face. Dad lets her in, and she sits at the kitchen table sobbing while trying to explain what she found. She pushes the journal across to Dad, and he reads through it, his face getting harder with each page. The entries are detailed and cruel, describing exactly how Jade would craft believable lies and predicting how people would react. She wrote about studying people's reactions to figure out what details would make her stories more convincing. She described it like a social experiment, testing different approaches to see what worked best. Monica keeps saying she's sorry, that she should have seen it sooner, that she raised a monster. Dad doesn't say much, just keeps reading with this expression I can't quite identify. When he's done, he asks if I want to read it, and I say yes, even though part of me doesn't want to know. The journal entries make me physically ill as I read through them. Jade wrote about enjoying my social isolation, about how satisfying it was to watch me eat lunch alone. She described my dad's disappointment in me like it was a victory she'd won, keeping score of every friendship I lost and every suspicious look teachers gave me. In one entry, she wrote about how easy it was to manipulate people once you understood what they wanted to believe. She said people love feeling like heroes protecting victims, so she gave them a victim story they could rally behind. Another entry described watching me try to defend myself to Holly and finding it hilarious that the harder I tried to explain, the guiltier I looked. She wrote that the best lies are the ones with just enough detail to seem real, but not so much detail that people can verify them. Reading her words feels like being violated all over again, understanding that every moment of my suffering was calculated and deliberate. 4 weeks after everything first came out, the college admissions office calls my cell phone. I almost don't answer because I'm terrified they're calling to reject me completely. The admissions counselor on the other end sounds professional and apologetic, explaining they're reinstating my acceptance after reviewing the situation. They're offering a formal apology for deferring my enrollment based on unverified claims that turned out to be false. They've removed Jade's warning post from the incoming freshman page and flagged her account so she can't post again. They're also offering me access to campus counseling services when I arrive and a meeting with the dean of students if I want it. I thank her and hang up feeling like I should be more excited than I am. Getting my acceptance back should feel like a huge victory, but mostly it just feels like too little too late. They believed Jade's lies without even asking for my side, and now they're sorry because it turned out to be convenient for them. I accept their offer anyway because what else am I going to do? Throw away my future out of spite. That night, I make my final decision about testifying at Jade's hearing. I realize that staying silent means letting her control the narrative one last time, letting the administrators and her mom hear only her version of events. I need to speak up. Not for closure or healing or any of that counselor talk, but because I deserve to be heard after 2 years of being silenced. I spend the next 2 days writing out everything I want to say, trying to find words that capture what it felt like to be treated like a predator in my own home and school. I write about specific lies Jade told and how they destroyed specific relationships. I write about eating lunch alone for months and having teachers watch me like I was dangerous. I write about my dad looking at me differently and Monica installing cameras like I was a threat. I write about losing Holly and watching my social life crumble while Jade gave speeches about surviving difficult family situations. Every few hours, I delete whole paragraphs and start over, trying to get it right. The hearing takes place on a Tuesday morning in a conference room at the district office. Jade sits at one end of a long table with Monica next to her, looking exhausted and sad. Principal Cantu is there along with 2 district administrators I've never seen before, a man and a woman in business suits who introduce themselves with titles I immediately forget. They explain the hearing process and ask if everyone understands, and we all nod. I sit across from Jade and force myself to look at her, refusing to let her make me feel ashamed anymore. When it's my turn to speak, I unfold my pages with shaking hands and start reading. My voice cracks on the first few words, but then gets steadier as I describe the specific lies Jade told about me staring at her and leaving her notes and trying to kiss her. I explain how those lies destroyed my relationship with Holly and isolated me from every friend I had. I talk about teachers treating me like a predator and Tyler's friends threatening me in hallways. I describe coming home every day to a house where my own father looked at me with suspicion and disappointment. Then I talk about the journal entries, how they proved Jade knew exactly what she was doing and enjoyed watching me suffer. I read some of her own words back to her, the parts about keeping score of my isolation and finding my pain entertaining. My hands shake harder as I read, but I keep going, making sure everyone in the room understands this wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding, but deliberate, calculated cruelty. When I finish reading, the room is completely silent for several seconds. Jade's bottom lip starts trembling about halfway through my statement, and tears well up in her eyes right on cue, but the performance feels hollow compared to all the times she cried about me before. The administrators watch her with flat expressions, instead of the concerned sympathy she's used to getting, and I notice the woman in the business suit actually rolls her eyes slightly when Jade lets out a small sob. Monica reaches over to squeeze Jade's hand, but her face looks destroyed in a way I've never seen, like she's finally understanding what her daughter really is, instead of the victim persona Jade always presented. Principal Cantu asks if I have anything else to add, and I shake my head, folding up my pages with hands that have finally stopped shaking. The administrators thank me for my testimony and excuse me to the hallway while they deliberate, and as I walk past Jade's chair, she won't even look at me. I sit on a bench outside the conference room checking my phone while voices murmur behind the closed door, trying not to think about how long 30 minutes can feel. When your entire high school career hangs in the balance of what people decide about your stepsister. Dad texts, asking how it's going, and I send back that they're deciding now, then put my phone away because staring at the screen won't make time move faster. The door opens after what feels like hours, but my phone says it's only been 28 minutes, and Principal Cantu gestures for me to come back inside. The male administrator reads from a paper in front of him explaining that based on the evidence presented including the journal entries and witness testimony, they're upholding the recommendation for expulsion effective immediately. Jade makes this gasping sound, and Monica starts crying for real, not the fake tears Jade was producing earlier, but genuine devastated sobs. The administrator continues explaining that Jade is banned from all school property and school-sponsored activities, and that the expulsion will be noted on her permanent record, which colleges will see when she applies. Jade finally speaks up asking if there's any way to appeal, and the female administrator says she has the right to appeal to the full school board, but given the evidence they don't anticipate a different outcome. I watch Jade's face crumble as she realizes this is actually happening, that she's not going to talk her way out of consequences this time, and part of me feels vindicated while another part just feels exhausted. Monica asks if they can have a moment and the administrators agree, leaving the three of us alone in the conference room with Dad and Principal Cantu stepping out too. Monica turns to me with red eyes asking if I'm happy now that I've destroyed Jade's future, and I tell her that Jade destroyed her own future when she decided to lie about me for 2 years. Jade sits there silently picking at her fingernails while her mom tries to fight a battle she's already lost, and I realize I don't need to engage with Monica's guilt trip anymore. I walk out of the conference room feeling lighter than I have in months, despite the heaviness of what just happened. 5 weeks pass in this weird blur where life at home becomes increasingly tense as Dad and Monica barely speak to each other except about logistics. Dad finally sits me down one evening and tells me he's filing for divorce, explaining that he can't stay married to someone who enabled their daughter to destroy his son's reputation and refuse to see the truth. Monica apparently isn't fighting the divorce according to Dad, and they've worked out an agreement where she and Jade will move out by the end of the month. I feel this massive wave of relief hearing that Jade will finally be gone from my house, that I won't have to see her face every morning or worry about what lies she's spreading. Dad looks sad when he tells me about the divorce, even though he's the one who initiated it, and I understand that losing a marriage sucks even when it's necessary. The next few weeks involve Monica and Jade packing up their stuff while trying to avoid me completely, boxes appearing in hallways and rooms slowly emptying of their belongings. Holly texts me out of nowhere asking if we can meet up to talk, and I agree to meet her at the coffee shop near school, even though I'm not sure what she wants. She shows up looking nervous, and immediately launches into this long explanation about how she never stopped caring about me, and wants to try dating again if I'm willing. I listen to her talk about how she regrets believing Jade, and how she should have trusted me, and when she finally stops, I tell her honestly that I don't know if I can trust her the same way anymore. Holly's face falls, but she nods like she expected that answer, and we sit in uncomfortable silence for a minute, before I suggest we could try taking things slow and seeing what happens. She agrees quickly, and reaches across the table to squeeze my hand, and even though the gesture feels familiar, it also feels different somehow, like we're starting from scratch instead of picking up where we left off. The moving truck shows up on a Saturday morning, and I watch from my bedroom window as Monica and Jade load boxes and furniture, neither of them looking up at the house like they can't wait to leave. Dad helps carry some of the heavier items looking grim and tired, and by early afternoon their stuff is gone, and the house feels strange with all the empty spaces. Jade and Monica drive away in Monica's car without saying goodbye to either of us, and I feel this huge weight lift off my shoulders knowing I won't have to see Jade in the hallways or at the dinner table anymore. Dad orders pizza for dinner and we eat in the living room watching a movie neither of us really pays attention to, just existing in the space that finally feels like ours again. He tells me the house feels different already, lighter somehow despite the sadness of the divorce, and I agree completely because home stopped feeling like a battlefield the second Jade's car pulled away. Over the next week, word spreads through school that Jade's been expelled, and my college acceptance got reinstated, and suddenly people want to talk to me again like I'm not radioactive anymore. Old friends reach out asking to hang out, kids I barely know, stop me in hallways to say they never believed Jade's stories, and everyone wants to hear my side of what happened. Part of me is pissed that I have to explain myself after 2 years of being ignored and isolated, but another part feels good finally being heard instead of dismissed. I end up telling the story multiple times to different groups of people, and each time I tell it I feel a little more vindicated and a little more angry about the time I lost. Some people apologize for not speaking up sooner, or for believing Jade without question, and while their apologies don't give me back 2 years of my life, hearing them admit they were wrong helps somehow. 6 weeks after the screenshot spread and everything exploded, I hear through mutual friends that Tyler's family is moving to another district to give him a fresh start. The news pisses me off because Tyler gets to escape the consequences of his actions, while I'm still dealing with the aftermath every single day. My friend Daniel tells me Tyler's already telling people in his new district that he was the victim of a witch hunt at our school, spinning some version of events where he did nothing wrong and got persecuted anyway. I want to be surprised that Tyler won't take responsibility, but honestly I'm not, because people like him never think they're the problem. Daniel also mentions that Tyler's new school doesn't know about the expulsion or the reason behind it, which makes me furious because he gets a clean slate while my reputation took 2 years to even start recovering. I consider reaching out to someone at Tyler's new school to warn them, but Dad talks me out of it, saying that trying to follow Tyler around to expose him will just keep me trapped in this situation, instead of moving forward. The support group Jade spoke to about surviving difficult family situations posts a statement on their website, apologizing for giving her a platform without proper verification. The statement explains they're implementing new policies about vetting speakers and checking claims before letting people share their stories publicly. Layla, the counselor, shows me the statement during one of our sessions and asks how I feel about it, and I tell her honestly that it won't help me, but maybe it prevents the next person from being used as a prop in someone's lie. She nods and says that's a mature perspective, and we spend the rest of the session talking about how I'm coping with everything that's happened. I've been seeing Layla regularly since the hearing, working through the damage Jade caused and trying to rebuild some sense of self-worth after years of being treated like a threat. She helps me understand that Jade's actions say everything about her character and nothing about mine, which makes sense logically, but believing it emotionally is way harder. 2 months after the truth came out, my friend group invites me to a party at someone's house, and I actually go instead of making excuses. The party is small with maybe 20 people, mostly kids I used to be friends with before Jade destroyed my social life. People treat me normally instead of with suspicion or pity, making jokes and including me in conversations like I'm just another person there to have fun. Someone puts on music and a few people start dancing badly in the living room, and I find myself laughing at their terrible moves instead of feeling anxious about being around people. Holly shows up later with some of her friends and sits next to me on the couch, and we talk easily about random stuff without the weight of everything that happened crushing every interaction. Daniel challenges me to a video game tournament, and I accept even though I haven't played in months, and losing badly to him somehow feels good, because it's normal teenage stuff instead of trauma and consequences. Around midnight, people start heading home, and I realize I actually had fun for the first time in what feels like years. The drive home with Dad, who picked me up because I'm not an idiot about drinking and driving, feels peaceful as I tell him about the party, and how good it felt to just be normal for a few hours. He smiles and says he's proud of me for putting myself out there again, and I realize I'm slowly rebuilding something that resembles a social life, even if it won't ever be exactly what I had before Jade burned it all down. Monica calls Dad the next week, asking if I'd meet with her and Jade so Jade can apologize in person. Dad tells me about the request while we're eating dinner, and I can see he's trying not to influence my decision either way. I tell him no without even thinking about it because nothing Jade says can undo what she did to me. Dad nods and says he'll let Monica know, then asks if I'm sure, and I say yes. I don't owe Jade forgiveness or closure just because she wants it now. He makes the call that night, and I hear Monica's voice get loud through the phone before Dad hangs up. The school year keeps going, and I focus on maintaining my grades for college while dealing with my complicated feelings about everything. Some days I wake up angry about the 2 years I lost to Jade's lies and Tyler's threats. Other days I'm just relieved people finally know the truth, and I can walk through hallways without everyone treating me like a predator. Most days I feel exhausted from carrying all of it, like the vindication came but it didn't fix the damage already done. I study for tests and turn in assignments and participate in class discussions, going through the motions of being a normal senior while processing everything underneath. Teachers treat me carefully now, almost too nice, like they're trying to make up for believing Jade without question. Holly texts me asking if I want to grab coffee after school, and I say yes, even though I'm nervous about it. We meet at this place near campus and talk about random stuff for a while before she brings up what happened. She apologizes again for not trusting me, and I tell her I understand why she believed Jade because the lies were detailed and convincing. We go on a few more dates over the next couple weeks, and there are moments that feel like old times, laughing at stupid jokes and finishing each other's sentences. But there's also this new awareness between us about broken trust that wasn't there before. We're both trying to figure out if we can build something new or if too much damage was done. I honestly don't know the answer yet, and I tell her that during one of our dates. She says she doesn't know either, but wants to try, which feels fair enough. I hear through friends that Jade is attending a different high school in her new district after Monica and her moved out. Apparently she's telling people there she had to transfer because of family problems, still not being honest about what she actually did. The fact that she can't own up to her actions even now makes me angry, but I'm also relieved she's not my problem anymore. Her lies are someone else's issue now, and I can focus on finishing senior year without her presence poisoning everything. 3 months after everything came out, I get a thick envelope in the mail from a law office. Inside is a letter from Tyler's lawyer threatening legal action if I continue to defame Tyler by discussing what happened. The letter uses big words and official language to basically say, I need to shut up or they'll sue me. Dad reads it and gets immediately angry, saying Tyler's family is trying to intimidate me into silence. He contacts a lawyer friend who looks at the letter and laughs, explaining it's an empty threat meant to scare me. Our lawyer sends back a response telling them to back off and reminding them that truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Nothing comes of it after that, but the fact that Tyler's family is still trying to protect him instead of making him face consequences pisses me off. Principal Cantu calls me down to his office one afternoon and asks if I'd be willing to speak to the school board about implementing better policies for investigating accusations between students. He explains they want to prevent situations like mine from happening again and thinks my perspective would be valuable. I agree because maybe sharing what I went through can prevent the next person from being presumed guilty without real evidence or fair investigation. The school board meeting happens 2 weeks later in this conference room with about 15 board members sitting at tables arranged in a U-shape. I sit at a small table facing them with a microphone and my written notes, feeling my hands shake as I wait for my turn to speak. When they call on me, I focus on how quickly everyone believed Jade's lies without ever asking for my side of the story. I describe being watched by teachers, threatened by students, and treated like a predator in my own home based on nothing but her word. Several board members seem genuinely affected by my testimony, nodding and taking notes while I talk. One woman asks me what specific changes I think would have helped, and I tell her that requiring evidence before taking action and hearing from all parties involved would be a start. The board votes that night to implement new investigation protocols that include mandatory interviews with all parties and documentation requirements before disciplinary action. It feels like a small victory, even though it doesn't help me. Piper reaches out a few weeks later asking if we can talk, and I meet her at a park near school. She tells me she still feels guilty about not catching on sooner to what Tyler was doing with Jade. I remind her that she's literally the reason anyone knows the truth at all, that without her digging into Tyler's online activity, everything would have stayed buried. She's the hero of this story, not the villain, and I tell her that directly. We start hanging out more after that, bonded by her role in revealing everything. She's easy to talk to, and doesn't treat me like I'm fragile or broken, which I appreciate more than she probably realizes. 10 weeks after the screenshots spread through school, I receive a formal letter from the school district on official letterhead. The letter acknowledges they failed to properly investigate Jade's claims before treating me as guilty. It includes an apology and an offer to expunge any disciplinary notes from my record, plus provide a letter explaining the situation to colleges. The gesture feels hollow because it doesn't give me back the time I lost or fix the damage to my relationships, but I accept it anyway, because having official documentation might matter later. Dad helps me draft a response accepting their offer and requesting the explanatory letter be sent to my college. Spring break approaches, and I make plans to visit my college campus to get familiar with the layout and meet with the counseling services they mentioned. Dad offers to come with me and turn it into a road trip, just the two of us driving across state lines and staying in hotels. The offer feels like a small step toward rebuilding our relationship after everything that happened between us. I accept, and we start planning the route, looking at maps and picking places to stop along the way. The trip is still a few weeks out, but having something to look forward to helps me get through the daily grind of senior year. A few days after we get back from the road trip, my phone buzzes with an email notification from an address I don't recognize. I almost delete it without reading, but something makes me click it open and my stomach drops when I see it's from Jade. The subject line says, "Please read this," and the message itself is massive, paragraphs and paragraphs of text that I start scrolling through without really processing. She writes about how sorry she is, how she never meant for things to go as far as they did, how she was dealing with her own insecurity about the divorce and our parents getting married. She claims she felt invisible and unwanted, that making up stories about me was her twisted way of getting attention and feeling important. The email goes on forever, explaining how she got caught up in the lies and couldn't figure out how to stop without admitting what she'd done. She writes that she understands if I never forgive her, but she needs me to know she regrets everything. Near the end, she asks if we can talk, maybe meet somewhere neutral so she can apologize in person and try to make things right. I read the whole thing twice, waiting to feel something other than exhaustion and anger, but mostly I just feel tired. Her explanations still make everything about her feelings, her struggles, her need for validation. There's no real acknowledgement of the 2 years she stole from me, or the relationship she destroyed, or the fact that I had to defer college because of her lies. She wants me to help her feel better about what she did, to give her absolution so she can move on with a clear conscience. I hover my cursor over the reply button for maybe 30 seconds before clicking delete instead. The email disappears from my inbox and I close my laptop, deciding right then that I'm done giving Jade any space in my head. Her need for forgiveness isn't my responsibility, and I don't owe her closure or peace of mind. Whatever she needs to work through about her actions, she can do it without me. The college campus visit happens 2 weeks later, and Dad drives us across 3 states, stopping at random roadside attractions and eating at diners along the way. We don't talk much about Jade or Monica or anything heavy, just focus on the trip itself and making new memories that aren't connected to all the bad stuff. When we finally pull up to the campus, I feel this weird flutter in my chest, seeing the brick buildings and students walking around with backpacks. Dad parks and we spend the afternoon walking around, checking out the student center and the library and the dorms where I'll be living. Nobody here knows anything about me or what happened with Jade. I could be anyone. Just another incoming freshman excited about starting college. We meet with someone from the counseling center who walks me through the services they offer and gives me information about support groups and therapy options. She's nice and doesn't push too hard, just makes it clear that resources are available when I'm ready. By the time we leave campus that evening, I'm actually feeling excited instead of anxious. Being in a place where my history with Jade doesn't define me feels like breathing fresh air after being stuck in a smoky room. I can build whatever identity I want here, be whoever I want to be without the weight of being her victim following me around. Dad notices my mood shift and smiles, saying he's proud of how I'm handling everything. We grab dinner at a burger place near campus, and I catch myself laughing at one of his dumb jokes, realizing it's been months since I felt this light. Holly texts me a few days after we get back asking if we can meet up and talk. I agree, and we decide on a coffee shop halfway between our houses, somewhere neutral where we used to hang out before everything fell apart. She's already there when I arrive, sitting at a corner table with 2 drinks in front of her. She slides one toward me when I sit down, and I recognize it as my usual order, which makes me feel weird because it means she remembered. We make small talk for a few minutes about college plans and graduation coming up, dancing around the real reason we're meeting. Finally, she takes a breath and says, "We need to be honest about where we stand." I nod and wait for her to continue. She tells me she's thought a lot about us getting back together, about whether we could go back to what we had before Jade's lies destroyed everything. But she's realized too much has changed, that the trust we had is broken in ways that can't be fixed just by knowing the truth now. I feel relieved hearing her say it because I've been thinking the same thing, but didn't want to be the one to end things completely. I tell her I understand, and that I've been struggling with the same doubts about whether we could ever get past what happened. She reaches across the table and squeezes my hand, saying she still cares about me and wants to stay friends if that's possible. I squeeze back and tell her I'd like that maybe someday when we've both had time to heal, we can figure out if there's still something there. But right now, we both need to focus on moving forward separately, instead of trying to force something that might not work. We finish our coffee talking about lighter things, and when we leave I feel sad, but also like we made the right choice. Sometimes caring about someone means letting them go, instead of holding on to something that's already broken. A week later, I'm sitting at my desk staring at the acceptance letter from the college that reinstated my enrollment. I've been putting off making the final decision, because part of me is still angry that they doubted me in the first place, that they took Jade's word and made me defer for a year without really investigating. But another part of me knows that holding on to that anger means staying stuck in the past, instead of moving forward. Dad knocks on my door and comes in without waiting for an answer, sitting on the edge of my bed and asking if I've decided yet. I tell him I'm leaning toward accepting, but I'm struggling with the fact that they didn't believe me initially. He nods and says that's valid, that I have every right to be upset about how they handled things. But he also reminds me that choosing this school means choosing to see it as a new beginning, instead of dwelling on their mistake. He says he's proud of me for even considering moving forward instead of staying angry, because the anger is justified, but it doesn't have to control my future. I look at the letter again and realize he's right, that going to this school doesn't mean I'm okay with what they did, but it means I'm choosing my future over my resentment. I pull out my phone and navigate to the acceptance portal, clicking the button to confirm my enrollment before I can change my mind. Dad sees what I'm doing and grins, saying he knew I'd make the right choice. I tell him the anger is still there under the surface and probably will be for a while, but I'm tired of letting Jade's actions keep controlling my life. He hugs me and says that's all anyone can ask, that healing takes time, and I don't have to be okay with everything that happened to move forward anyway. 3.5 months after the screenshots spread through school, I sit in Layla's office for what she tells me will be our last session before I leave for college. We've been meeting weekly since everything came out, and she's helped me process a lot of the anger and betrayal I've been carrying. Today she wants to talk about strategies for managing anxiety and trust issues when I get to campus, practical stuff I can use when I'm living on my own. She gives me information about the counseling center at the school and makes me promise I'll actually use it if I need to, instead of trying to handle everything alone. We talk about recognizing signs that I'm struggling and having a plan for what to do when bad days hit. She reminds me that healing isn't a straight line, that I'll have good days and bad days, and sometimes I'll feel like I'm going backward instead of forward. But having bad days doesn't mean I'm not making progress. It just means I'm human and dealing with real trauma that takes time to work through. I tell her I'm worried about trusting people at college, about whether I'll be able to make friends without constantly wondering if they're lying to me like Jade did. She validates that fear, but also reminds me that most people aren't like Jade, that what she did was extreme and not normal behavior. She suggests starting small, building trust gradually with new people, instead of expecting myself to jump in with both feet. By the end of the session, I feel more prepared than I did coming in, like I have actual tools instead of just hoping everything will work out. Layla walks me to the door and tells me she's proud of how far I've come, that a lot of people wouldn't have handled this situation with as much strength as I've shown. I thank her for everything, and leave feeling like maybe I actually can do this college thing without falling apart. Graduation is coming up in 3 weeks, and I'm actually starting to look forward to it now that I know Jade won't be there. Her expulsion means she can't participate in the ceremony, which means I can walk across that stage without worrying about seeing her face or dealing with her presence. A few people ask me if I feel bad about her missing graduation, if I think the punishment was too harsh considering she's still just a kid who made mistakes. I tell them honestly that I don't feel bad at all, that Jade made deliberate choices over 2 years that destroyed my reputation and nearly ruined my future. Missing graduation is a consequence of those choices, and that's not on me. Some of them look uncomfortable with my answer, like they expected me to be more forgiving or sympathetic, but I'm done pretending to feel things I don't feel just to make other people comfortable. Jade knew what she was doing when she spread lies about me, and she kept doing it even after she saw the damage it caused. She gave speeches about me at the school assemblies and posted warnings about me on college social media, knowing it would hurt me. The fact that she's facing real consequences now doesn't make me cruel or vindictive. It makes the world slightly more fair than it was before. I focus on picking out what I'll wear to graduation and making plans with friends for after the ceremony, choosing to celebrate my own accomplishments instead of worrying about Jade's feelings. Dad asks me one evening if we can talk about everything that happened with Monica and Jade. We're sitting in the living room after dinner, and I can tell he's been working up to this conversation for a while. He starts by apologizing again for not believing me sooner, for letting Jade's lies poison our relationship and make him doubt his own son. I let him talk without interrupting because I can see he needs to get this out. He says he keeps replaying moments in his head where he should have questioned Jade's stories, times when her accusations didn't quite add up, but he ignored his instincts because he wanted to believe his new family was working. He admits he was so focused on making things work with Monica that he failed to protect me from Jade's manipulation. When he finally stops talking, I tell him the truth, that I'm working on forgiving him, but our relationship changed when he doubted me. The fact that he believed I could do the things Jade accused me of hurt almost as much as the accusations themselves. I tell him rebuilding trust between us will take time, that I can't just flip a switch and forget how it felt to have my own father look at me like I was a predator. He nods with this sad understanding on his face, saying he knows he doesn't deserve easy forgiveness, and he's willing to put in whatever work it takes to earn back my trust. I appreciate that he's not making excuses or asking me to get over it faster than I'm ready to. We sit in silence for a few minutes before he asks what he can do to start rebuilding things. I tell him he's already doing it by listening and acknowledging what he did wrong, that time and consistency will do the rest. My aunt calls me out of the blue saying she heard about what happened with Jade and wants me to know she's here if I need to talk. I'm surprised because we've never been super close, but I appreciate the gesture. She tells me she always thought Jade's stories seemed off, but didn't want to cause family drama by questioning them publicly. I feel this flash of anger hearing that because it means she had doubts, but stayed silent while I was destroyed. I ask her why she didn't say something, why she let me go through 2 years of hell if she suspected Jade was lying. She gets quiet for a second before admitting she didn't want to rock the boat, that she figured if the stories were true, then questioning them would make things worse, and if they were false, then the truth would come out eventually anyway. I tell her that logic is exactly why Jade got away with it for so long, because people like her chose family peace over standing up for what was right. She apologizes and says she should have spoken up, that she'll regret staying silent for the rest of her life. Other family members start reaching out too, cousins and uncles and my grandparents, all saying they're proud of how I handled things and they're here for support. Some of them admit they also had doubts, but didn't know what to do about them. I realize how many people stayed silent instead of questioning Jade's narrative, how her lies worked partly because people didn't want to believe a teenage girl would make up something so serious. Their support now feels too late, but I accept it anyway because holding grudges against everyone who failed me would be exhausting. 4 months after everything exploded, I go to prom with a group of friends and actually have a good time. We rent a limo and take pictures at someone's house before heading to the venue. People at prom treat me normally, coming up to say hi and asking about college plans without any weird tension or pity in their voices. A few classmates tell me they respect how I handled the whole situation with Jade, that they don't think they could have stayed as calm as I did through everything. I don't tell them that I wasn't calm at all, that I spent most of those 2 years angry and isolated and wanting to give up. But I appreciate the sentiment anyway because it feels validating after spending so long being treated like a problem. We dance and take more pictures and eat the mediocre food they're serving, and for a few hours I'm just a normal high school senior at prom, instead of the guy whose stepsister destroyed his life. My friends make jokes and we laugh too loud, and someone spills punch on their dress. Walking out at the end of the night, I feel lighter than I have in months, like maybe I'm finally becoming myself again instead of just surviving. I hear through mutual friends that Jade didn't get accepted to any of her top choice colleges because her expulsion is on her permanent record. Apparently she applied to 7 different schools and got rejected from all of them, with a few specifically citing disciplinary concerns in their rejection letters. Part of me feels satisfied hearing that her actions had real consequences that will follow her beyond high school. She wanted to ruin my future by posting lies on my college's social media, and now her own future is limited because of what she did. But mostly I just feel tired of the whole situation, exhausted from carrying around anger and vindication and resentment for 4 solid months. I don't want Jade's college rejections to make me happy because that means I'm still letting her control my emotions and take up space in my head. I want to move on with my life and stop caring what happens to her, stop measuring my healing by whether she's suffering enough. My friends want to celebrate the news like it's some kind of victory, but I tell them I'm done keeping score. Jade made her choices and faced consequences, and now, I'm done caring what happens to her. Word gets around about Tyler's family filing some appeal with the school board trying to get his expulsion overturned, claiming the punishment was too harsh and violated his rights or something. The appeal process takes a few weeks with meetings and paperwork and lawyers getting involved. And I don't pay much attention to it because I'm focused on finishing senior year strong and getting ready for college. When the school board finally announces their decision, they uphold the expulsion completely and add that Tyler's behavior showed a pattern of manipulation that made him a threat to other students. The board's statement mentions that his family's refusal to acknowledge the severity of his actions makes it clear he hasn't learned anything from the situation. I hear he got placed in some alternative education program for students with behavioral issues where he has to attend counseling and complete community service. Part of me feels satisfied knowing he can't just move on like nothing happened, but mostly I'm just relieved he's not my problem anymore. His family apparently still tells people he was the victim of a witch hunt and that the school overreacted, which pisses me off but doesn't surprise me. Some people will never admit when their kid does something wrong. Graduation gets closer, and I find myself thinking about how different I am now compared to 2 years ago when Jade first moved in. I used to trust people easily and assume the best about them. Now I question everything and keep my guard up even with friends who've proven themselves. I notice how fast someone's reputation can be destroyed just by rumors and lies, how people believe what they want to believe without checking facts. The experience made me more aware of injustice and more willing to speak up when I see someone being treated unfairly. Teachers used to ignore me when I tried defending myself, but now I know how to push back and demand to be heard. I'm more cautious about who I let into my life and what information I share. The damage Jade caused changed something fundamental in how I see the world and other people. Some of that damage is permanent, and I'll probably never fully trust people the way I did before. But I'm learning to build a life around those scars instead of pretending they don't exist. My counselor says that's growth, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Graduation day arrives with clear skies and warm weather. I put on my cap and gown in my bedroom while Dad takes pictures and makes jokes about how fast I grew up. We drive to the school together, and I feel this weird mix of emotions sitting in the parking lot watching other families arrive. I'm proud that I made it through everything and came out the other side. But I'm also sad about all the time I lost being isolated and miserable because of Jade's lies. Walking into the gymnasium where they're holding the ceremony, I see classmates I haven't talked to in months, and teachers who watched me struggle. When they call my name and I walk across the stage, people actually clap loud instead of the polite golf claps most students get. Some kids even cheer because they know what I survived to get here. I spot Dad in the audience standing up and cheering louder than anyone else, his face showing how proud he is. Shaking Principal Cantu's hand and taking my diploma feels surreal after everything that happened. I walk back to my seat thinking about how this moment almost didn't happen because Jade tried so hard to destroy my future. The ceremony continues with more names and speeches, but I'm barely paying attention. I just keep thinking about how I'm finally done with high school and everything that came with it. Summer before college starts, and I get a job at a local store stocking shelves and helping customers. The work is boring, but it keeps me busy and helps me save money for school expenses. I keep seeing Layla the counselor once a week to process everything that happened. We talk about how getting vindicated doesn't magically fix the damage or make the pain go away. She helps me understand that moving forward means accepting some questions won't ever have good answers. Like why Jade decided to be so cruel when I never did anything to her. Why she enjoyed watching me suffer and kept making it worse even when she could have stopped. Those questions eat at me sometimes, but Layla says I have to accept. I'll never fully understand what goes through someone's head when they choose to hurt people for no reason. Getting justice and proving I was telling the truth matters, but it doesn't undo 2 years of trauma and isolation. I'm learning that healing is a separate process from vindication and takes a lot longer than I thought it would. I spend time with friends who either stuck by me during everything or came back after learning the truth. We go to movies at the theater downtown and concerts at this outdoor venue by the lake. We drive to the beach on weekends and stay until sunset taking pictures and swimming. Being around people who treat me normally instead of like a victim helps me remember what it feels like to just be a regular teenager. We make stupid jokes and complain about summer jobs and talk about college plans. Nobody brings up Jade or Tyler unless I mention them first, which I appreciate because I'm tired of being defined by what happened to me. One night, we're all hanging out at someone's house eating pizza and watching movies, and I realize I'm actually having fun without that constant weight of anxiety and anger. It's the first time in years I've felt light and normal instead of carrying around all this trauma. The scars are still there and probably always will be, but I'm slowly building new memories that aren't tainted by Jade's lies. Dad helps me pack for college in late August, carrying boxes up from the basement and helping me sort through what to bring. We talk about staying in touch through video calls and texts, making plans for me to come home during breaks. He promises to visit campus once I'm settled and take me out to dinner. I can tell he feels guilty about everything that happened and wants to rebuild our relationship. He mentions he's been dating someone he met through work, this woman who makes him laugh and seems really kind. I'm genuinely happy for him, even though part of me still carries some resentment about how he doubted me when Jade first started lying. He looks lighter than he has in years, like the divorce from Monica freed him from something heavy. We load my stuff into his car, and he makes jokes about how much junk I'm bringing to a tiny dorm room. Driving away from the house, I feel this mix of excitement about starting over and sadness about leaving behind everything familiar. 5 months have passed since those screenshots spread through school and exposed the truth. I'm getting ready to leave for college with excitement about the future, mixed with anxiety about starting completely over. Packing my clothes and books and supplies, I keep thinking about everything I learned from this nightmare. People will believe lies if they're told convincingly enough, especially when the liar seems trustworthy and has details that make the story feel real. But I also learned that truth eventually comes out, even if it takes way too long and causes massive damage first. The timing sucks because I lost 2 years of my life being treated like a predator, but at least people know now that Jade was lying the whole time. I'm leaving for school knowing that some people still probably believe her version or think the whole situation was blown out of proportion, but enough people know the truth that I can move forward without that weight of false accusations hanging over me constantly. I arrive at college on a sunny afternoon with Dad helping me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs to my dorm room. My roommate hasn't shown up yet, so I pick the bed by the window and start unpacking. Dad hugs me goodbye and tells me he's proud of me for getting through everything and making it here. After he leaves, I sit on my bed looking around the empty room and thinking about how this is my chance to build a life that isn't defined by what Jade did to me. I'll always carry the experience and the scars it left, but I refuse to let it be the only thing that matters about me. The vindication I got wasn't perfect because it came too late and didn't undo the damage. But it was enough to prove I wasn't crazy or lying, that everything I said about Jade was true. Sometimes that has to be sufficient to move forward and build something new. I unpack my clothes and set up my desk, ready to start this next chapter.